The availability of surgeons in rural and regional areas is a problem. How do you solve that? Is technology the only answer to that?
Well, technology can help, and there's no doubt that telemedicine, providing links between groups that do not necessarily need a physical presence of the surgeon at the site, is important. And transport's important as well. If you have a well-refined aeromedical transfer system, then you can, if you like, not necessarily have quite the physical presence that you might have had in years gone by. But we still need good doctors to be practicing in our rural communities and the bush communities, and they need to have a broad scope of practice. And it is challenging to train people for those particular roles. We will continue to do that. It's one of the things we will push to do, but it will be hard. It will be a challenge.
Is the college the single biggest influence on the kinds of surgeons that are trained in both Australia and New Zealand?
No, it's very much dependent on actually what goes on in the workplace. There's a very much chicken and egg about this, of course, in that as funders, in response to population changes and disease process changes, fund and provide for more work, then there is more training space for us to train the surgeons of the future. So what would generally happen when there is an increase in work is that we start with getting some surgeons to come from outside Australia and New Zealand to work, but we have space then to train our own trainees, and in due course they will then be available for working in those increased work areas. The college couldn't say, if you turned around us, we couldn't say, well, let's just double the number of orthopaedic surgeons training next year, because what would happen is that even if one could afford to employ them, they would exactly have half as much work to do as the group that were working this year. And most experts believe that you need somewhere between 10 and 15,000 hours of experience to train an expert. I understand those sorts of numbers apply to flying, apply to jewellery, applying to any sort of art form, any sort of practice that you can imagine. And we need that degree of intensity of experience for our Australian New Zealand trainees as well. And if we have 15,000 at the moment, which is more or less what we do, and you put twice as many people in, they're only going to have 7,500, and we would not train them to the right level to practice. How would we train them then? We'd have to extend the training time, which really doesn't help us a lot, because if we put twice as many people in but train them for twice as long, we're in exactly the same position we were beforehand. So when there is more work to be done, then we can put more trainees in and we can get more experienced practitioners out the other end.
But another issue that's going to outlive your presidency and be an issue for years to come.
Well, it will be, and I think there's some technology that will help as well, and it's probably not quite as black and white as I've portrayed, because of the use of simulation and training not on the patient, but training in the laboratory, training in a simulated environment. As there comes more techniques and more availability of that will allow those 15,000 hours to not all be 15,000 hours at the hospital on call in the operating room, but maybe the majority of them like that, but some others may be in the simulation lab doing simulated operations in a realistic environment.